My addiction wasn't drugs or alcohol. It was control, approval, and managing how people saw me. And it nearly ruined my life because secrecy doesn't stay quiet, it leaks into everything. If you've ever felt like you're performing, like you're hiding, you're managing the room so nobody sees the real you, then this is for you. Now, I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to make a statement. I'm just telling you what changed me. My name is Kirk Taylor, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. And this is my journey from secrecy and control to truth and freedom. I've had the privilege of leading our men's recovery group for a while now, and I don't try to control it. I just try to facilitate what God's doing. Now, honestly, I feel closest to Jesus in those moments, helping other men dig through pain, not trying to fix them, and just walk with them. When I first came to recovery, I thought recovery was for those people with drugs, alcohol, or porn issues. That's exactly what I thought. And for the first 6 months, I believed I was there to help other people. But I quickly found out I was the one who needed help. Those early meetings, they were all about me, and I didn't even know it. Some of the men in that room had more peace, stability, and honesty than I ever had in my life. And that was a wake-up call. Because recovery teaches us something powerful. Our addictions, whatever they are symptoms of something deeper. You can quit your vice, but that doesn't mean you faced what's driving it. And for me, that meant finally facing some things I had kept buried since I was 5 years old. Now, for most of my life, I carried a deep internal conflict. A battle that began around the age of 5, and I didn't have words for it then. All I knew was that something inside me didn't match what I saw in the mirror or what I thought I was supposed to feel. I was jealous of and attracted to things around my sister, her clothes, the way she dressed, the attention she got. And later it was the girls my age, how they looked, how they carried themselves, and the way people responded to them. I'd find myself daydreaming what life would be like if I were like them. And of course, I never told anyone. That silence led to isolation. When no one was around, I'd look through old catalogs, the Montgomery Ward, JCPenney, Sears, not for what most boys were looking at, but to imagine what it would be like to be one of the models in those books. All the while, I had no attraction to men. I was and always have been attracted to women, yet I envied everything about femininity itself, and that created a lifelong tension I didn't know how to explain. So I tried to blend in with the guys, the BMX bikes, the motorbikes, the dirt tracks. I did everything I could to appear normal, but I always made sure no one ever saw what was really going on inside my head. Now, school was another struggle. By the end of my sophomore year, I couldn't handle it anymore, and I dropped out, only to come back later and finish somewhere new and graduate. But the turmoil, it never stopped. As I got older, I learned to compartmentalize, and I hid it from my girlfriends and later from my wife, until one day she came home early and she found me dressed. Now, I was busted, but I was strangely relieved. And there was a moment where I thought if I could just live this way, maybe I'd finally be happy. But what I didn't understand then was that even if I had transitioned, it wouldn't have solved the deeper problem because my pain wasn't just about gender. It was about identity, shame, and self-acceptance. I built a life, work, marriage, and responsibilities all while bearing that part of me under layers of control, performance, and perfectionism. And on the outside, things looked fine, but on the inside, I was falling apart. You see, when you live in secrecy that long, you become an expert at pretending. You manage perceptions. You shape-shift to what others expected. But living that double life eats away at your soul. It's like a house that looks perfect on the outside but has termites eating the foundation, and eventually it cracks. So for me, those cracks showed up as anxiety, anger, and control. And I tried to manage everything and everyone around me, not out of love, but out of fear that failure would expose me. Now, that's what codependency really is, trying to control outcomes to protect your image. And by my mid-40s, I was spiritually bankrupt. I believed in God. I never doubted his existence, but I didn't know his character. I thought he loved people, but that I was somehow disqualified. And in 2014, at age 47, I had just gone through my third divorce, and I was done hiding, so I told the truth. I went public with my gender identity struggle, not to make a statement or to take a side, but because I couldn't keep living a lie. I started hormone therapy, began dressing in public, even came out on social media. And for a moment, that worked. No more secrets, no more anxiety from hiding. But deep down inside, I still knew something was still off. Because while my appearance changed, my problems didn't. My relationships were still messy. My self-worth was still fragile. And when I looked in the mirror, I really looked in my own eyes. I still saw the same person staring back. No makeup, surgery, or clothing could fix what was broken inside. The truth was, I didn't like myself. And even after transitioning, I still didn't like myself. The anxiety about hiding was gone, but the emptiness remained. And then came February 2016. I was with a woman I cared deeply for, and she was sitting on my lap doing my makeup, doing my mascara, and before we went out, and as I looked into her eyes, something snapped inside me. I thought, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. And I literally started shaking, physically shaking, and in that moment, everything changed. I stopped, I quit dressing, I dumped the hormones, and for the first time, I admitted something was seriously wrong with how I'd been living. That relationship ended not long after, but the desire to transition was gone. Still, I was afraid, not afraid of going back, but afraid of when the urge might return. Then in October of 2016, someone invited me to my church to hear Pastor John preach. And that day changed everything because I walked out with a brand new NLT Bible in my hands, and I couldn't put it down. I started at Genesis and read all the way through, cover to cover, in 7 weeks. Now, I was desperate to understand why I had struggled for over 40 years and how in one February night it could just suddenly stop. And through that search, I began to see God differently. Now, maybe he hadn't been waiting to reject me after all. Maybe he had been waiting for me to come home. That season was messy, confusion, loneliness, rebuilding, but something new was happening. It was honesty, not the polished, controlled version I used to show people, the raw kind that invites healing. And that's where my recovery truly began, because it was in my first real honest conversation with God. In January 2017, my pastor asked me to be a part of a pilot program for a new recovery ministry. I didn't know why he wanted me there or why I needed to be there, but I said yes. And I still thought it was for those people, the ones who drink too much, use drugs, hit rock bottom. That wasn't me, at least not on the outside, but spiritually, I was as bankrupt as anyone in that room and a lot more. And I learned recovery isn't about what you used, it's about what's using you. My addiction wasn't a substance. It was control, approval, and the illusion that I could manage my image and still find peace. But peace doesn't come through control, it comes through surrender. That's what the first 3 steps taught me. I was powerless to fix myself. There was a power greater than me who could, and I had to make a decision to let him. For someone who'd spent a lifetime managing everything, that surrender was the hardest thing I had ever done. But little by little, God started softening me. The man who used to perform began to participate. The man who used to hide began to heal. The man who used to live in fear began to live in truth. It was during that season that I began to give myself grace and acceptance. And for the first time, I started believing that maybe I could actually be saved, that I wasn't disqualified. I went from despising the man I saw in the mirror to at least giving that man a chance. I wasn't fully at peace yet, but I no longer hated myself, and that was the first real freedom I'd ever known. The last several years have been the most transforming years of my life, not because everything has been easy, but because God has been teaching me how to live free, not just forgiven. Early in recovery, I used to think freedom meant feeling better. Now I know it means becoming different. I didn't chase leadership. I just kept showing up. And when nobody else volunteered, I said I would help. But leadership wasn't about me teaching others how to recover. It was about God using other people to keep me recovering. As I've matured, one of the biggest changes has been learning boundaries. Before, I tried to rescue everyone. If someone was drowning, I'd jump in and drown with them, thinking that was love. Now I've learned to throw a life ring instead. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. It means showing up in truth and grace and letting God be the Savior, not me. Another shift has been emotional sobriety. For years, I was driven by reaction. If I felt hurt, I defended myself. If I felt disrespected, I fought back or withdrew. Now, through prayer and the tools of recovery, I've learned to pause, to ask, what's mine in this before I act? And in that pause, God speaks. He gives clarity where there used to be chaos. He replaces fear with faith. I don't always get it right, but I get it right more often than I used to, and that's growth. So today, my confidence doesn't come from how I look or what people think of me. It comes from knowing who I am in Christ. I'm not defined by my past. I'm not limited by my mistakes, and I'm not trapped by my old patterns unless I choose to be. So when the old habits or thoughts try to creep in, I don't say I'll never change. I say I haven't changed yet, but I know God will finish what He started. When I look back at my journey, I see 3 chapters. Who I was, the man trying to manage the unmanageable. What happened, the moment of surrender and truth. Whom becoming, a man walking in grace, living out his purpose and helping others do the same. And if I could leave you with one thought, I would say it would be this. You don't have to rewrite your past to have a future. You just have to surrender the pen. The same God who rescued me is still writing my story, and I'm grateful to keep turning the pages one day better.